No, I'm not. I'm going left. Oh, God. Why?
The human brain has two hemispheres, left and right. Most of our thinking happens in the thin outer layer of each, called the cortex. But in males, the cortex is thicker in the right brain, which excels at spatial thinking. So boys are thought to use a highly spatial strategy. They create a mental image of the whole maze to use as a map. Then they might use a reference point like the sun to figure out where they are. And by rotating their mental maps, they can then decide which way to turn next. So the boys have good spatial awareness, navigating with a strong sense of where they are in the overall maze.
Okay, that's right. Right.
But are the girls thinking the same way?
If you had to draw a map of the maze when you got out, do you think you could do it?
No.
No. What could you remember when you got out, do you think?
Probably the bit with all the circles, and you just circle.
Because you can remember what those circles look like. Is that the idea?
Yeah.
The girls are less interested in the big picture. They're picking up on specific details.
I now know where to go now, because once I get out of these circle bits...
They're using some distinctive circular hedges as landmarks. Like the boys, the girls also use their right brains for navigation. But in the girls, the corpus callosum, which connects the two halves of the brain, is better developed. So girls also rely on the left brain, which excels at verbal reasoning. Rather than the whole maze, they focus on features that they can describe in words, like the circular hedges. The girls navigate by following a list of directions, from landmark to landmark, but with no overall map of the maze, it's easy to lose sight of the landmarks and get lost.
This particular maze might favour boys because it doesn't have many obvious visual features in it. The hedges all look the same. There are some shapes, but there aren't clear points that you might remember.
In this kind of maze, scientists consistently find that boys come out ahead by using their mental maps.
Yeah, I'm there.
In mazes with more prominent landmarks, it's the girls who would take the honours. But today, they have to settle for second place.
Found it.
In the early 1970s, it was taken for granted that chess also required a typically male way of thinking. Like the maze problem, the game seems to depend on a spatial awareness of the board and all the pieces. But then, Susan Polgar came along. When she was still just a tiny girl, her father planned to prove that gender differences in the brain were not important.
I definitely would agree that there are differences and men and women think differently. I'm not disputing that. It doesn't mean necessarily that one is worse than the other. And that's the beauty of it. I think that's the beauty of life, that we don't all have to be a certain way to succeed. There can be many roads to Rome, they say.
Just a few months after she learned the game, Laszlo took Susan to Vörös Meteor, the most formidable chess club in Budapest. Susan was about to face male opposition in more ways than one.
Wow, I haven't been here in over 15 years, and this is the first place I ever came to a chess club. I first came here late 1973 or very early 1974, and well, the place so far looks exactly like it did then. I walked in a room. It was full of smoke with elder men, them thinking that my father is looking for a game and just brought me along. But the reality was my father wanted me to have a game to see how I'll do against the members of the club.
The club members thought Laszlo was mad. But if they were ready to humor a pretty little girl, they weren't ready for what happened next. Susan began the habit of a lifetime, beating men at chess.
I had a whole bunch of guys, after losing to me, complaining. One said, "Oh, I didn't sleep well." The next one, "I was sick." The third one, "I had a stomach ache." It's like was kind of going on in a series, and I jokingly said that I've never beaten a healthy man.
The only man who wasn't shocked was Laszlo Polgar. He was building Susan's training around a mental skill that didn't depend on either the left or right brain. Girls could master it just as easily as boys, and before long, Susan was literally beating men with her eyes closed. Susan's about to play a game of chess with a difference.
Okay, why don't you be white?
Okay, E4.
E4. C5.
Knight to C3.
Susan's friend Ed has the chessboard in front of him, just like a normal game.
Knight C6.
But Susan doesn't need it. She's playing the game in her head. The only board she needs is in her mind's eye.
F5. Now you gotta be careful.
Amateur players like Ed have to see the board to keep track of all 32 chessmen.
I'll play G5.
But Susan follows all the moves using her fundamental chess ability, memory. Playing without a board helps to train the memory, and Susan has been practicing since childhood.
I'm going to sacrifice my knight now.
Knight takes C5.
You're sacrificing a knight?
Susan can play up to 5 games in her head simultaneously.
G5.
Bishop takes G5.
Rook E8.
Rook F3.
Knight E5.
Rook G3.
King F8.
The queen's moving in for the kill.
E to G4.
Queen H8 check.
Now it's over. King E7.
Checkmate.
Susan! That's not a nice way to say hello.
When it comes to chess, Susan can perform memory. In fact, she's doing something that should be impossible. An ongoing task like a game of chess is handled by a mental function known as working memory at the very front of the brain. The relevant brain cells, or neurons, store any necessary information by forming a network of electrical connections. But these connections die away within seconds, so working memory is limited. It's like a temporary scratch pad that can only store about 7 items of information. That's why the 7 digits of a new phone number are about as much as most people can remember. But just how good is Susan's working memory? This is Thompson Street in New York, home of the city's sidewalk chess cafes. And we're about to give Susan a memory test. Can she memorize all the pieces and pawns on this diagram? That's 28 items of information. To make things even trickier, the diagram has been pasted to the side of a cafe's speeding van. Susan only has time for a single 3-second glance. But watch this. Susan's working memory is working overtime. She's made an exact copy. To explain her miracle of memory, this scientist has come to a very surprising place. The diners at this London restaurant don't know it, but their table is under surveillance.